Never know what these AI images are going to produce for us.
Oh, no, eh? It's not live. Looks like we've got some issues.
No,
we're live. We are now live. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, a massive week. We've seen Bitcoin finally pass its all-time high of $125,700. But will this pump continue? Are we going to consolidate? Today, we're going to go through all the data, do a lot of live analysis on some charts, a lot of different coins that we're watching and why. And we're joined here today, once again, with Matty Stella, all the way from the UK, to provide some TA for us. Matty, how are you going?
Good, mate. Like I said, I did stuff up the call time and I woke up at 4:30 this morning ready to rumble. So that's how energized I am at the moment, because this market is heating up, and this 121K level, I know we're going to get into it, but it continues to hold. I think we need to dive into that today, because I think the altcoins are also getting ready.
100%.
So, man, I'm pumped. I'm excited.
100%.
Let's go.
We've got lots and lots of alpha to share for you guys today. And if we get 50 likes on this video, we're also going to share an altcoin at the end, which may be about to get an ETF approval, something that's currently quite dumb. So make sure that you share this video, share it to all your friends who are into crypto, get the word going around. We need to get as many people as we can on this stream, and make sure you smash that like button and let us know where you're tuning from in the comments below. But first off, we need to talk about Bitcoin. Bitcoin being the market leader. When we do see price move with Bitcoin, we do see it then later move into the alts. And what we're seeing right now is Bitcoin has reached an all-time high of $125,000 this week. However, this comes off the back of the fact that gold right now is currently pumping quite hard. Gold also hitting all-time highs. And if you were on our stream last week, we discussed how the US government shutdown was in place and how that may have started to affect the crypto market. What we're seeing is that store of value assets like gold, silver, potentially platinum, and also Bitcoin right now being recognized as somewhat of a store of value is currently running, as we're seeing the US dollar slowly become worth less and less. The US dollar is currently dumping off a cliff. Now, a lot of people on YouTube right now are talking about the Bitcoin and the gold scenario. We're not going to do too much about that today. We're just going to give you a bit of an overview, because it can help us to predict where price is going to go in the near-term future if we can look at the gold chart. You can see right now that here is a chart put together by Tapera Digital, and we can see the global M2 versus the Bitcoin price. And this tells us that as more money is printed in the US economy, which is the M2 money supply, Bitcoin tends to track price movement to how much money is in circulation, or how much liquidity there is, we should say. And you can see that the Bitcoin price is orange and the M2 money supply is the gray line. We can see the M2 money supply has more or less told us or forecasted when pumps were due, but also when potential dumps have been due. And we can see that from where we're sitting right now, there's actually quite a bit of a discrepancy there, right, Matty? It's a massive discrepancy, and this could indicate to us that in the near-term future, Bitcoin could be surging up to that $150,000 to $170,000 mark. Let me know in the chat if you are excited to see that come in. We all want to see $170,000 Bitcoin. I could almost imagine. Is anybody short right now? Let me know if you're short. But then below, we have the gold versus Bitcoin performance, and this is what's quite important. And you can see Bitcoin, once again, following gold quite closely. But if we're looking at this chart, what you'll find is that gold usually pumps first before Bitcoin. You can see gold is the industry leader. And if we look at why that is, pretty much gold is an established currency. If we're looking at Wall Street traders and a lot of old school institutional traders, you'll know that gold has always been looked at as the safe haven for tens and tens of years, where Bitcoin is something quite new, I guess, in terms of Wall Street adoption. So for gold to run first, then for money to slowly trickle into the gold, into the Bitcoin market is quite common. But we're seeing in about a 200-day lag based on this chart below. But it does indicate that if Bitcoin does follow gold, which it has in the past, that we could see us heading towards that $150,000 range quite soon. However, here's a chart where we have previously seen, and sorry, my computer is lagging a little bit. So many tabs of alpha open for you guys today right now. That's just slowing it down. Quite crazy. But I can see in the chat, Country Toys Australia has said 180K Bitcoin. Would love to see that. Let us know what your targets are, guys. I can see we get a few comments going in the chat. Let us know what you think your target is going to be. But you can see right now, looking at the Bitcoin versus gold chart, gold runs first. We've seen that in 2020, and we're seeing that right now in 2026. Bitcoin tends to have a bit of a lag, but then follows through with that gold price prediction. So very, very carefully watching the price of gold. Now, at the start of this call, we did address the fact that the price of Bitcoin had already hit that all-time high, and it was fantastic. But the only thing is when we saw that all-time high hit, we did see a lot of leverage positions being opened. And being a market maker, if you're not aware of market makers right now, you really need to make sure you're inside the Empire platform. But being a market maker, what we find is they often swing price to hit where most levels of liquidation points will be. We look at those on a liquidation heat map. And what we can see right now is that there's a massive liquidation heat zone right now. Just got a message, Matty. You need to turn your gain zone on your microphone. You're too loud. If you can push that back. Right now, you can see that there is a massive cluster sitting at around the $188,000 mark, which means that we could start to see price head back down towards that level. So keeping our eyes on that level. Matty, your mic is really, really loud, man. It's like you can hear all the background noise of you pushing buttons, just to let you know. I just got that message. Yeah, just push the mic a bit further away from you and you should be fine.
Yeah, no, I turned it off to fix it up.
Around that $188,000 mark is where we're currently looking at price to potentially swing down to. Now, it isn't all doom and gloom, though. Whilst we do expect all-time highs to come throughout Q4, you can see that gold right now is starting to dump. And remember that when gold does top out, liquidity tends to flow into Bitcoin and crypto, which often starts that parabolic run. And while you have a lot of people on X coming out and saying it's time to buy altcoins right now, personally, we're going to have a look at a lot of that in this call today. We're going to see where some good opportunities may be to look at buying some altcoins, if that's within your risk portfolio, of course. And we're going to be having a look at what ranges will be established before we start to consider those altcoins. But before we do, it is important to note that throughout the last dump that we had and throughout this big pump that we're currently seeing, the number of Bitcoin whales are currently getting much, much higher. And we're seeing that a lot of Bitcoin whales right now are stacking Bitcoin in historic levels much, much higher than ever before. The number of addresses holding 100 plus BTC has just hit an all-time high. And we know that when we get those massive levels of 100 plus Bitcoin buying up, that tends to show us that we are seeing a heavy level of money starting to flow in, which is really, really good, because we do want to see, when you get those big institutional investors, a lot of them can obviously play a big part within the market, and that leads them to wanting to take profits much, much higher, of course. If they're buying 100 BTC now, what are they going to buy later? But Matty, let's take a look at the charts. So that's Zcash. We're going to come back to that in a second. Matty, let's take a quick look at the Bitcoin chart. I want to see what you're currently looking at in regards to that. So we're going to bring your mic back over. Where is he?
So I've moved my mic completely out the way because somehow it's adjusted all the settings and it's picking up even my keyboard at the
Sorry,
moment.
I've just winded you down a little bit. Go for it, mate. What are we looking at?
Was this on your end? Did you stuff me up on OBS sets?
Oh, this is what happens when you got to run to the toilet 2 minutes before we start. We didn't get enough time to check
Come
the mic.
on, mate. All right, let me switch over. I was just looking at the gold chart just because as you were talking about it, I had a look just to touch base on this. You can see we've had this massive rally on the trend base and broken out. We actually hit the target on gold. So interested to see how this closes out with the conversation we're talking about at the moment. But you can see we've hit the 1 ratio here on the fibs at $4,050. So if we anything, we might see a pullback on gold to about 3,800-ish. So that's what I'll be watching right now. I'm actually going to set an alert there just so I'm on top of this one. Jumping into Bitcoin, this is where it's getting rather interesting. This is something that I am monitoring more closely than anything right now, Seds. We can see this level here at $121,000 continues to hold. Last night, it got really tested heavily. You can see we had a nice liquidity grab right down to the bottom in amongst this zone highlighted in blue, all the way down to 119,654 to be exact. But this here is proven to be quite a strong level of daily support and is the first time we've actually really held above this level with some conviction in the history of Bitcoin. So for me, I'm looking at this to say how much longer is this going to hold? We keep seeing that the US market at the moment is where a lot of the selling pressure is coming in, whilst Asia and London keep the market relatively stable. And last night we had the same sort of thing happen. An hour or so before the US market opened, we had this pump straight to the top of the range around 124,000 before a complete reversal, $5,000 down back to 119,000. So I am watching here at the moment. You can see price is starting to get squeezed. And I've got two scenarios at the moment. We either dip down and we actually really come down hard and take out the rest of the liquidity. And I think if anything, that will come from the basis of the US market. Otherwise, I'll look for the break and retest above this level around 122,500 before anything else further.
And then look at it for the continuation up, hey? Well,
Yeah,
just
correct.
on that note, I just want to show something real quick, and I was going to show it a little bit later in the call, but there is that pattern that we follow, the Wyckoff accumulation pattern. I'm just going to switch it back over to my screen real quick, but what we find is that price tends to go sideways within a range, dip below where you got phase C, and that's where we see a big accumulation, before pumping back up and then seeing a nice consolidation where we've put in an all-time high before then blasting off to the potential stratosphere, which we want to see. If we have a look at ETH, you can see right now, it looks like ETH is kind of playing out before Bitcoin right now. And you can see exactly the same kind of thing where ETH, it came down, it respected the support, came back up, but then it knows that a lot of people entered the market to go for the next move up around here. Not long after, you see that ETH, it put a little wick down here, and it stopped out all those shorters, all those longers. If we have a look at Bitcoin right now, I'm seeing something really quite similar where we are seeing a pattern like this, where once again, we've had the spring below. This time round, though, we actually got two springs below. And for my prediction right now is, I'm thinking that from where we are currently, that we could consolidate within this sideways range just here, just over the next maybe couple of days, just consolidate sideways here for a little bit before blasting off. Now, when I'm looking at this, and a lot of people say, well, when do I buy altcoins? It's the hard time to buy altcoins because everything's already run, or they're buying altcoins and they're getting quickly flushed out. The way that I like to personally do this is knowing that we could see some sideways consolidation within the market just over the next, call it a couple of days, couple of weeks, where we go like this. Where I like to get into the altcoins will be at the bottom at that level of support, because then I can capture the move on the way up, can hold it back when it comes down, or you can sell it and then potentially look at rebuying when market comes back down. But then, you'd be looking to then run that up from the bottom. Thing is a lot of people see this range and they start getting into altcoins, at the top here. And once they've bought at that top level there, when price comes down, what we find is that those altcoins are then in quite a heavy loss. You see Bitcoin dump just a couple of %, but that absolutely destroys a lot of altcoins, right, Matty? So, you got that 3%, it's only a 3% move there on BTC, but that can lead to a good, 6%, sometimes even more on the altcoins, right? So that's why it is really, really important just to, just to watch out for that and time those entries. And, that's why here on this call today, I really wanted to get into looking at some of the altcoins, show you guys some of the narratives that are currently in play, because I want to get everyone positioned on some of the altcoins that we're looking at, right, Matty?
100%. I've got a bunch of altcoins I want to get through. I know you've had a look at a fair few, but I've got some really good charts that I want to cover. Since I also wanted to tail back to the DXY that shows the dollar value for the US dollar index later on when we've got a moment as well, because we spoke about
Yeah.
that last week, and I want to show you how that actually played out since last
Yeah, we'll
week.
jump into it now. So that's one of the big things, right? So with this US government shutdown that's currently taking place, what we saw is the US dollar did come down quite heavily, right?
So we saw the US dollar come down quite heavily, and it's been sort of consolidating along the bottom of the channel there. I don't know if my screen up at the moment.
Yeah,
Seds,
yeah,
just so I
screen's
know.
up. Yeah.
Yeah. So the US dollar over the last, like I would say, the whole year at this rate, all the way up from December or January 2025, it's been absolutely crashing. It has come down significantly, right? You can see that it's a 12.5% drop. Now, last week when we were looking at this, we were talking about the Dixie consolidating at the bottom of the range, right? The DXY. If anyone wants to follow it, you can put that in trading view, and you can see the value of the US dollar. But you can see we've been consolidating at the bottom of this range, and I was looking at this level this year for TA trader or people wanting to learn TA. You got the inverse head and shoulders at the bottom, and we've actually broken past the trend. So this is what I was watching last week. You can see if we scale back, we're talking about this last Friday. I'm saying, hey, we're probably going to get a bit of a push here. We've had that push, not fully extended yet. I think we will come up to the top of the range here. So that's what I'm watching for on the Dixie at the moment, because it has had a significant push. And this is also says, as we know, has an effect on the overall market, like you were just mentioning. So this is something I'm monitoring really closely, especially over the next week as well.
Yeah, so for those of you who are new, when you find the US dollar tends to gain value, that usually can lead to a dump in Bitcoin. So when the DXY or the US dollar value is going up, we tend to find an inverse correlation to Bitcoin. Bitcoin tends to go down. And when we're seeing the DXY come down, which is what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, really, or since the US government shutdown, that is where we tend to see the price of Bitcoin go up. So there is really a close correlation that needs to be looked out for. Now, just getting into other news, one thing that we are seeing, I'm just going to share my screen, Maddie. What we're seeing right now is that a lot of short positions have actually been open. So there's a lot of traders out there right now that are more or less betting on the market coming down. And just before I do go into this segment, actually, guys, if you haven't yet already and you're enjoying our content, please support our channel by hitting that subscribe button and also smashing that like button. We go live every Friday, so make sure your alarm bells are on so that you're alerted when we're live next. But last time, there was a net higher amount of shorts than there was long positions in the market. We saw that actually put in a local bottom. So looking back here on the 27th, we saw that indicator flash where there was more shorters than people long. Not long after, we got a pump. Once again, here, 29th, same thing. And now we're seeing that happen again right now on the 10th. So if this isn't a bottom right now, we could still see a little bit more consolidation. I'm still keeping my eyes out in case we do come for that 118K flush. But I think that it really is just a matter of time before we finally see those fireworks in the market, right?
I like the way you put that, the fireworks. That's what
I want to see some fireworks. Right? That's what we want.
Everybody's
man.
hanging for some fireworks. Yeah, that is correct. I will say, just so you touch base on the SEDS, but a lot of these altcoins, they've been consolidating for a fair while, right? Everyone's saying, like, when's the altcoin season? When's the altcoin season? It's not, personally, I don't think it's a matter of when is the altcoin season. I think it's a matter of, hey, taking advantage of what's there in front of you right now. And like, I'm looking at charts like Link, I've posted in the Empire platform as well. And for those that are new and don't know and haven't been on Empire before, if you go into the description, there's a 14-day free trial that you can sign up to Empire Premium, get the full experience. But I was just dropping in there, like Link has a 15% move potentially in the range. STX, we looked at it, and we'll go through that in a little while, but that's about 100% to the top of the range after this big consolidation that has been taking effect. It's not going to take much, in my opinion, right now to blow the top off everything, but Bitcoin really needs to find its level.
It does. And once it does, Once it does, we get that level, that's when I think the altcoins are really going to have that time to shine, right? So what we're
Yes.
looking at in the market right now, though, is we need a bit of a catalyst. We need a catalyst to send more money investing into Bitcoin. And I've got a couple here that I want to share today that might be coming up. So first off, there was the meeting last night with the Fed where they discussed interest rates. And the Fed Governor Moran has come out and said that we should have an aggressive rate cut of about 0.5% to 1%. Whilst a rate cut in the short-term period can be a little bit bearish, we can see, a couple of days before, maybe a couple of days after, we could see a bit bearish. It is quite bullish for the markets at a more medium term, because that means that now money getting borrowed is cheaper. And once money getting borrowed is cheaper, people like to take out more loans. When they have done that, some of that money then flows into things like Bitcoin or other potential stocks, right? And, we've spoken about this pretty much every time on my call, so I'm not going to go too deep into it today. But we have that catalyst currently on the horizon. And then we have another catalyst here where the US Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, has reportedly come out and confirmed that now the US plan to buy more Bitcoin. And he's come out and said that at a private dinner. If you've been anywhere on X or Empire, you would have found that, throughout this last week, there's been a lot of discussion about Senator Loomis creating the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve. She's also come out and said that there's going to be they may start buying at any time, more or less hinting that some buyers are going to come. So they're saying they're buying up to 1 million BTC. I know that's going to be over a 5-year period. So looking at accumulating 200,000 Bitcoin at a time. But seeing the US government officially announce this could start to cause that domino effect, or we're going to call it the game theory effect, where one nation buys, then another nation wants to buy, and they all start FOMOing in because the US is going to own all the Bitcoin and no one else is going to have some. And that could be also one of the catalysts that do cause that to happen. And
So
why?
do you think Australia is ever going to own any Bitcoin?
No, not with that.
Do you reckon we're going to be the last laggers in the history of owning any sort of crypto at all as a nation?
Mate, Australia's doomed, mate. Australia's doomed. They've killed off any kind of innovation. In Australia, they don't want people to get rich, right? They are too busy trying to tax us all so that we're all poor. But anyway, we won't talk too much about Australia because we're stuck here. But right now, what we can see is that, going back to, the DXY, Matty, and why I still think it's possible for us to get a bit of a pullback, is the US dollar right now is on that 14-year support trend line. And it really is now or never. If this falls below that 14-year trend line, then we could see a massive dump on the US dollar. And I think the only way we're going to see that massive dump is if they do come out and cut the interest rates by 0.5% or 1% next month. Historically, when we have seen an interest rate cut, we've seen the US dollar get much, much weaker. 0.25% cut caused a nice dump on the US dollar. If we get a 0.5 or a whole 1% drop in interest rates, then that could see the US dollar break through that 14-year support, especially at a time that we're doing it right now, given the fact there's just so much inflation. That's going to be what we called it. For those of you who don't know, but I did a live call in Empire on Tuesday. If you want access to those calls, make sure to click the link in the bio. But on that live call, I went through all the data, and we're basically calling this the controlled collapse of the US dollar. To cut interest rates, especially at 0.5%, 1%, whilst inflation is so high, it's going to send inflation absolutely ballistic, which is going to cause the US dollar to come down, no doubt about it. So yeah, we are calling it the controlled the controlled collapse of the US dollar. What are your thoughts, Matty?
I had my chart up on this last night. I was sharing it with the community, that 14-year trend line. For me, it just doesn't add up. I look at it and go, hey, if you crash the dollar at this point, like you're saying, if they were to invoke 0.5 or a full percent cut on interest rates, inflation would go through the roof, in my opinion. It's actually quite scary to that degree to even consider it. Like, that in itself, without the fact of inflation, even if you go hard and you cut interest rates by 0.5 or hypothetically a whole percent, that would, in my opinion, spook the hell out of the market, because that is telling me my economy is in that much stress that if I don't open the floodgates right now, things are like people are going to start losing jobs, houses are going to start crashing, and the economy is on the verge of basically a massive crash. So you need that
Open the
stimulus
floodgates,
to
mate.
come
Let's
in.
do it. Open the
Mate,
floodgates.
it's scary. It is honestly, it is a scary time to do that. My opinion, anyway. From my background in economics and understanding financial markets and business and stuff like that, I think you've got to do it in a controlled manner. If you go and do a percentage cut or a 0.5%, scary times.
100%. And guys, I just put a poll in the YouTube chat. Let us know what you think we're going to see first. Will it be 118K or 130K? But guys, I think it's time that we start talking about altcoins. Who's ready for the altcoins?
Let's get into it.
Do we have any degens on this video? Let us know if you're a self-proclaimed degen. Let us know in the chat down below. If you haven't already, make sure to hit subscribe and smash that like button for us. We go live bringing you these market analysts and fundamental reports every single Friday. So make sure you don't miss another call. So guys, let's start looking at these altcoins because we do have quite a few picks here for you all today. Make sure if you haven't yet already to share this video around. I'm trying to boost this channel a bit, guys, and any support that you guys can help us with by sharing the video around will help us out tremendously. I think, Matty, these streams that we're doing at 5 o'clock, I think we're going to have to wind it back to a different time zone. Let us know in the chat, do we do a different time zone? Is Friday 5 p.m. not working for you? The more feedback we get, the better we can serve you.
Friday beers in crypto, no good. I think Friday beers in crypto would be a good one.
I think most people are out there on the beers, potentially at a pub rather than sitting on YouTube. But anyway, so guys, what we saw this week was Grayscale have finally come out and launched the first spot staking ETPs for both Ethereum and Solana in the US. And that means now that staking yields are going to be entering Wall Street. So probably find that there's going to be a bit of demand coming in for both Ethereum and Solana right now as people start to buy those coins, lock them up, and get their staking yield. Very similar to buying a stock on the stock market and getting yourself a dividend. We're seeing something very, very similar right now. So that went live, and what we actually saw was in just 3 days, in only three... Oh, let's give it a second to load. In only 3 days... Oh, sorry, guys, bit of hay fever. We saw that Grayscale has already gone ahead and staked 1.1 million ETH, currently worth $5.1 billion. That effectively means that they're taking over 1% of the total Ethereum supply, locking that up in staking contracts, and that's only in 3 days. I think it's going to get to a point where there is just so much ETH being taken off exchanges and locked up that we could later see a bit of a supply shock coming, meaning not much left to buy on the books, and that could cause quite a large pump in Ethereum. Now, we're going to have a look at the
what's
chart.
their return on this stake? Do you know? Have you looked into that, what their actual return is?
Yeah, so using LITO, I'm pretty sure it's about 2.9%. But regardless, if you're buying an asset, you're getting the price appreciation and the 2.9% dividend, you're laughing. You know, most people in Wall Street are going to look at this and say, yeah, load me up, right? It's just an extra bit of income for them. So, Matt, if you want to give us a chart on ETH, what do you reckon?
ETH, I've got this one up, ready to go. So ETH, we spoke about this last week as well, and on Monday on the call, and I was talking about the fact that we're probably going to see ETH come back towards this order range. That's at $4,700 to be exact, and that's where we had the rejection around that, right? Now, here we've come back down. Now, I'm looking at this point here. You can see we're holding at the 50 EMA. It's around $4,344 to be exact, and you see last time they were at this level as well, price was just fluctuating up and down, right? You can see between 4,400-ish all the way down to about 4,266. Now, as a trader myself, if I'm looking at anything, I'm looking to get in at bottom of the ranges before swinging the position versus the middle of the range, because you've got so much on either side of the direction. But again, consolidating at these levels isn't a bad thing. And I think that's one thing people need to take into consideration is, as long as price is holding within here, it's not bad in my opinion, because what that means is people are essentially accumulating within that range, and eventually you're either going to have the breakout to the upside or the downside. But from an accumulation perspective, if it's in the upwards trajectory, then my expectation would be for this to eventually break above this $5,000 resistance point that everyone is harping on about it with Ethereum. But until we sort of break out at that point, If anything, if I'm going to get into a position, I'm going to look at around that $4,000 mark, around that rounded level. So
Yeah, I'm looking at that as well for potential entries. But I just want to share a post here. There was a post here by one of the world's probably best analysis guys when it comes to crypto. It's by Empire Crypto Trading by a guy named Mat Ceddia. Some of you guys might know him. He's quite big in quite big in the
here
crypto
we
space.
go.
But that's me for anyone who's asking. But that goes back to the chart that we were looking at earlier on ETH. And we can see that that is playing out really, really closely right now, where we've got phase A. We went through that sideways consolidation. Then we have phase B. We then went down for that massive creek that led us to the spring, which the spring we saw there in phase C. Price then came back up, reclaimed the support, which is what we see here on the Wyckoff accumulation schematic as the test. And then went straight up to the top, the jump across the creek. We saw that play out perfectly. And now, just like I'm saying with Bitcoin, we are in that final consolidation and accumulation range at the top before we can go up and potentially see liftoff. And if I'm looking for my targets, I'm looking for this to hit anywhere between $6,700 to the $8,000 mark personally. That's just my 2 cents. This isn't financial advice. I'm just
You're
giving you
going
guys...
for the moonshot swing, hey?
Well, the way that I like to estimate what the potential pump will be is I like to measure the size of the range. And, if we're measuring the size of the range, let's just get this from here to here. And we go from where we're going to break out from, which could be, say around here. That's Bitcoin. Whoops. Let's go back to ETH on that one. Here we go. Wow, this is really laggy. Just going back to ETH. And, if we measure that range, it's quite a big range, actually. A very, very big range. And we go and whack that from the top where we're going to break out from, then even around that $6,500 mark, it could be quite possible that we could come up and hit that. Let us know in the chat who wants to see $6,500 Ethereum. That would be a massive run. But
Hey, Seds, if you can share my ETH chart for a second, I'm going to put some money on the table here. I'm going to call out the next Ethereum resistance points to $1.
All right, let's do it. But before we do, just take note that a lot of your altcoins usually won't see that massive alt season until we see Ethereum break that all-time high. So we are really waiting for potentially one more touch to the bottom of that range before then breaking out. Once we get that breakout, that's when I'm going to go straight into my altcoins personally. But Matty, show us your prediction.
So I've got Ethereum up at the moment, guys. The next target, we've got to break 4,961.
Yep.
The next one after that will be $5,395. And the one after that will be $5,949 as the target. Each one of them is being confirmed from the Fibonacci level. This is what I love to use to understand price discovery. People go, where the hell is the resistance? This is what I use. Let's monitor this. All right. If someone else has something else, post in the Empire platform and we can see who wins and we'll do a giveaway.
Yeah, done. That sounds good. All right, Matty. Well, another coin.
Have some fun.
Another coin that I want you to look at, because the money that's being staked is potentially going into Lido from what we're seeing right now online. I want you to do a chart on Lido. So if you can, you still got your screen sharing. If you can open up LDO and let's take a look at your analysis on Lido.
I think we did this one. So we're following this one from last week as well. So this one makes it easy.
Yeah.
So we're looking at Lido last week, and from memory, Lido was sitting around this midpoint range. And I said, and we spoke about it, we can go back and have a look at the podcast, but we're talking about, unless we sort of break out on Lido around the 133 or $1.33 mark anyway, sort of we're stuck in this range. So I think my alert must have disappeared, but I set an alert down here around $1.08 because with Lido, you just can see the range, right? We've got a range here about 25%. So for me, that's what I'm really concerned with. So if I look at this and look to the left, right, you can see we're holding above this support level at the moment. Now, this support level is around $1.06 to $1.08. That's where I'd be looking to get in personally, because right now, again, in the middle of the range, I never want to trade middle of the ranges. We can draw a little zone out to the bottom here to give us a bit more of a clear indication. But that's what I'd be watching. Anything around this point is where my level of interest would be right now for Lido. We've got the bullish cross on the EMA, so the trend in price is still currently going up from an average perspective. But that's what I'd be watching. This level here as a point of where I'd be considering entries and then taking the range of 25%. But until we get to that point, just got to wait it out and see what happens.
Well, I think that point will probably burst once we get the Ethereum breakout, right?
Correct. So, I mean, if you put everything into correlation, right, if Ethereum starts to run, like you were saying, said, the altcoins start to get some backing, you know, we go into the large cap alt and we start to filter through. Each one of these levels on LIDO will be the interest for me. So again, once we break out at $1.33, you got $1.55, $1.77, and then one of the favorites, 194 at the 707 mark would be the big ultimate target. You can just see how much activity goes on between that level. So I'd be watching that point there. But this here, you can see at $1.33 will be the big one to break out. That's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, well, it looks like it is almost putting in an inverse head and shoulders there as well. So we could get that breakout quite soon. Me too. Well, I'm going to go back to my screen for a second. Matty, we've lost your webcam. Yeah, it really is. But going there, you're back. So just going back to that original post about, you know, all these staking ETFs or ETPs that are coming in. The next one that we need to look at is Solana, because Solana also having an ETF. And if you look at the price of Solana, we know that recently we saw BNB, Binance Coin, absolutely rip. And what we're seeing right now is that Solana is starting to print a pretty similar a cup formation, which could also lead to a pump in Solana. We're going to have a look at Solana, and then Matty, I also want you to have a look at JITO, because when you have Lido for Ethereum, and that's where a lot of the staking funds are going into on the Ethereum network, but we can't fade the fact that there's also a Solana ETF, and some of that money may move into JITO. So definitely need to look at Solana and JITO. I'm going to flick it back over to your screen now. Just give me 1 second and take us away, mate. What are your thoughts?
So Solana is one that we monitor all the time, right? We look at this every single Monday. You know, there's people that hold a lot of this. This is a token that I love to monitor because of the way it moves, and it moves quite consistent. That's why I do it. So at the moment, you can see we're holding above the midpoint range of the CCI. This is showing me that there's still momentum in play with Solana. Now, the difficult fact here is we're having this selling pressure come in, right? We're actually putting in a change of market structure off the top here. You can see that $237, it got rejected. And now we've come back to the next support level at $220. Now, you look to the left on this chart, these levels have held up for quite some time, and price does react with them quite cleanly. So I'm looking at this point on Solana right now at $220, and I'm looking for confirmations of an entry, to be completely fair. The fact of the matter of what I'm stuck with at the moment, this is where the overall correlation of what's happening is, I'm looking to see what actually happens with Bitcoin. So you can see here with Empire, we teach people that we look at support zones versus just one individual horizontal line as a support level. You can see price is currently trapped in amongst this point. So at this point here, I'm monitoring Solana, but if it was to get a push, I'd be looking to the top of this range here, which is about 7.5%. Otherwise, a dip back down to around that $206 mark is where my interest would be. And then I'd sort of wait it out and get some further confirmation from there. But it is holding at support at the moment. The question is now whether or not Bitcoin is going to get up and go to help facilitate a lot of these moves, because this does like to move alongside Bitcoin in my experience.
Yeah. You're right, man. You're right. And what about JITO, JITO, or JTO, the ticker is for that one?
JTO. All right, let's have a look at this.
Because that one has absolutely
monitored.
That thing is almost at a bottom. If we can pick it, look at that. If we can pick a good entry off this and money does start to flow in, man, this thing could be the next potential 10x, 20x gem.
So this is on the monthly chart. You can see this thing is at rock bottom. Weekly level at the moment. Look at this right down here. This is low. This is right at the edge. Like you're saying, it's on the cliff face. Anything more than this is going to fall to the floor. You know, this is the level from January 2024. So dive into this on the daily time frame. Man, if there was a support level I was looking at, it would be at this rate here. I mean, you can't really give much more than that. You look left, I mean, historically, this is where prices has bounced off, and it has since April this year. I want to see the range on this. This is the part that I always like to see. What is the range between here? So that's a 30% push, and it's done it multiple times.
Massive.
I
On
mean,
10x,
if you're trading just the easy range, I mean, that's a 300% gain on 10x. Even if it's a spot bag, 30% is not a bad one. The one thing I'll tell you guys that I look for, so see here, it's closed below this midpoint of the order zone. So that was at $1.57. If I wanted to be a sneaky person and try and snipe an entry, I'd be
which
looking
you
at
do,
left.
which you do.
Yes, I very much love to. At $1.51, you can see I've set a sneaky alert down there. I wait for that to hit to be completely fair, just to give me a better risk to reward ratio to the top of the range.
Yeah, that looks like a banger trade. I'm not going to lie. But if we can get that, and you know, the thing is as well, though, like once money starts to flow into the to the Solana staking from these big institutions, we could see a massive pump on JITO. To me, it feels like it's undercover right now. It's a bit of a hidden gem. Really, not many people are talking about it just yet, but I think its time in the sun will come quite soon, eh?
Yeah, I'm downloading all these charts as well. I'm going to whack them in the Empire platform. So again, for those that aren't in there at the moment, make sure you click the link in the in the description. It'll give you 14 days for free, and that way you guys can monitor these as well and download these charts.
Amazing. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go through some more altcoin alpha because it's all been happening this week. And what we're seeing, and we spoke about this last week, but both Sui and your favorite coin, DOT, are now being listed on the DTCC platform in preparation for the ETF. So let's do some charts. Let's take a look because we could see millions like we have with ETH and Solana and more billions with Bitcoin flow into some of these coins with massive buying pressure. So let's take a look at Sui first and then let's move on to DOT. I've just shared your screen for you, mate.
Done. DOT is one I do love. You guys, you know that says. I can't get enough for some DOT. So we'll bring this up. I was looking at this last night, actually. I've been monitoring this one religiously. But I'm still looking at this and I'm looking, we need a clear break above this 200 EMA, which is sitting around $4.25. And I want to start to see, and I'll move this down for a moment, but zooming in here for everyone. You can see the 50 EMA is slowly creeping up. I really want to see these start to squeeze together to demonstrate to me that the average price of DOT is currently going up, but we still are trending below this resistance point at $4.18 and holding for dear life on this trend line. So if anything, I'm just waiting this one out at the moment. I'm not in. I am waiting to see what happens because it wouldn't surprise me if we do dip back towards this $3.75 mark. If Bitcoin does have that flush.
Get that quick liquidity sweep.
Exactly. And you can see at that $3.75 mark, that's where majority of the transactions are taking place on a daily time frame for DOT. So if I was a betting man, that's where I'd be looking more than anything.
What about Sui? Sui has had a lot of talk over the last couple of days, and I saw that they're looking at launching a burning and buyback thing for Sui. Sui is a deflationary crypto. We do need to look at Sui.
So we're looking at this. This is the one we looked at last week. So I was saying if we can actually get some successful holds on Sui, then the top of the range here is back up to $4.23. Now, the problem is we did not get that successful hold. You can see we broke through after that big red candle smashed through. It's now further down. It's actually retesting that was what was once support as a resistance point. So we're going to reevaluate. We're going to remove that one. And I'm looking at this now going, okay, well, if this is going to get picked up anyway, if I'm going to extend this trend line out, I'm probably thinking again, targeting the bottom of the range here at $3.21. I'm going to set an alert down there as well. But you can see, because if you look to the left, this is where price has been picked up historically, right? This is where you had the hammer form. So for me, I'm going to look for a deeper entry. There's no point me buying here, hoping for this to do this, because I'm running this trade into a resistance point, not something I'm interested in. And again, going for a better risk to reward, I'd rather come in a little bit lower at $3.21 and see where that lines up. You can see that's where we've had large bounces off historically. So that's my target for Sui. And then from there, I'll be able to manage whatever trade the direction of that is there. Because I think, what's this range? This is about probably 10% anyway.
Nice little range.
8% back to the top of the range. You can't complain with that.
Yeah, for sure. And guys, if you haven't yet already, if you're enjoying our content, make sure to smash that like button and hit subscribe. We do these calls for you every Friday to keep you guys on top of the market. So make sure that you jump in. You can hit that alarm bell to be notified when we are live next. And it'll also help us to support the channel. That's only if you like our content. If you don't like our content, well, then, you know. But I'm seeing a lot of people in the chat saying that they love it. So thank you so much for tuning in. We have got more alpha to share with you guys, though. And one of the things
Since I
that we
got a
need
big
to...
one.
Wait, can you leave that real quick? You know, Maddie, me and Maddie, Maddie's currently living in the UK, but we prepare a document of what we're going to share. And then that document gets completely overridden by other stuff that we see throughout the day. We just get so excited that we've got so much like charts and so much knowledge to share with everyone. You know, being traders for 10 years each, there's just... we see so much information come in. We're like, oh, we've got to act on this. We've got to add this in the podcast. And before we know it, the podcast gets blown out to 4 hours long. But anyway, it's not going to happen today because it is Friday and we do have to go out. But guys, one thing that we do need to be looking at is BNB, a Binance chain. Out of all the blockchains right now, it's currently topping in 24-hour fees. We're seeing huge things happen on BNB, as well as an all-time high. If you're holding some BNB, let us know in the chat. But what we're currently looking at is Cake. And the reason we're looking at Cake is the fact that when you trade BNB, when you trade on the Binance Chain Network, I should say, you need a DEX to trade on. And Cake is by far the biggest DEX on the BNB network. But what Cake are also coming out and doing right now is they're launching a thing called Cake.pad. And what CakePad is it allows for people to go ahead and participate in early access IDOs, basically being able to give you guys access to coins before they launch, but that's happening on Cake itself. Now, the way that people are going to need to get into these IDOs will probably have a good effect on both BNB and Cake. So we're keeping a very close eye on Cake right now. And you can see that we've hit a massive price on Cake of $3.60. But Maddie, show us some TA on both BNB and Cake. I think BNB is a bit overcooked. I think if you missed that trade, that one's well done and dusted. But Cake still looking like it's going to have some legs in it.
Yeah, so Cake, we had a look at this last week, same sort of fact. After the podcast, Cake pumped, I think it was a 14% candle, right? You can see this here, we spoke about it on Friday, and then we had a massive candle. Now, this year, we're talking about the ranges again. We always talk ranges, I personally anyway, 22%. It pumped off the top of the range. Now, it is actually retesting what was once the resistance point as the support level. Looking at this at the moment, we can see that Cake is now above the resistance point at $3.70. So if we look to the left here and we talk about ranges, the reason you can see this wick to the top here and the failed breakout is you can see the large order zone that is here on the weekly time frame up to around $4.50. So that's where I was monitoring that piece. Now, I think this blue line has just magically gone into that point. But if I'm going to look at this now, I'm going to look at anything above here as the potential range for Cake. You can see it as a resistance point. We'll just adjust this slightly, and I want to bring this back into the daily time frame, and just for us to look left, because you can see that's where the price is getting rejected from. Now, looking to the left, you can see we've got the top of the wick. Again, the rejection here back towards April and March 2024. So for me, as someone looking at this, there's two things I'll look at, whether or not we think this may actually hold. And I'll look at the momentum, and you can see we had a big bearish divergence occur as price hit that resistance point. Price has now come down, and that divergence has now essentially reset. So the momentum is back down to that midpoint or the top of the range there. And when things go hyper bullish, so do you know this? It doesn't take much once it dips back into that neutral ground for the next leg to sort of occur. So I'll be watching this candle personally, see where that one lands. And then looking at, again, it's another 22% back to the top of the range there. So, mate, Cake is absolutely on fire at the moment. Since we spoke about it last Friday, it pushed 77%.
Massive, massive. Did anybody get into Cake? Can I see in the comments? Let us know if you did or if you didn't buy Cake. And I think this is just one reason why you need to subscribe to us and watch our live streams, because you are missing out on opportunities just like this. But for those of you who are on this call, you do have some more opportunities that I'm about to share with you guys. Matty, but first, before I do that, did you want to chart BNB as well? I think there might be some opportunities in BNB for some shorts.
It's funny you just said that because I was looking at BNB just earlier on, and I was looking at this, and I had this chart all done up, and I just wiped it recently. And the reason I wiped it is
that's a big parabolic curve, man.
It is huge. You put this on the weekly time frame, it really puts into perspective how fast this thing has actually run. Now, if I'm going to run my trend-based fibs on this, as many of you know I do, and I test multiple points on this to see how they line up. But I'm looking at this point here, right? Now, dragging this across, we can see this here. We can mark out a simple resistance point. We can adjust this slightly anyway if we need to. We'll test this point actually whilst I've got it, just to see how this sort of plays out this here. So I reckon that might be a little bit more accurate. But at the moment, I'm looking at this and going, this thing is absolutely moonshot, right? So if we start to mark out each of these levels, and this is where we're at currently, price is currently struggling at that 1,270-ish mark. Now, if this was to go anymore, I'd put targets around 1,600, which would be huge, right?
Yeah.
Percentage-wise, it's 27%. It's massive. But the risk element for me now is this thing is absolutely shot, right? It is gone bananas. It is absolutely going to, you can see the trend-based fib levels have lined up very clearly with order zones, right? So we know we're in the right spot. Right, we're in the right spot. Looking at this now is whether or not this support level now holds, right? What was once resistance has now flipped to support. The momentum is starting to reset, but me as a trader, sense, I can't get into this. I can't get into this.
I'm looking at the divergences right now. I'm looking at the divergences, and it looks even like on the weekly we're starting to see a bit of bearish divergence come in, which makes sense. A bit of a pullback. I think things do go parabolic, no doubt about it, but eventually they do come to a bit of a consolidation period before the next leg's up. And I think it's fair to say that this thing's done a 7x. The consolidation period is well overdue, and I think it's probably going to come very soon. But Matty, we've only got 5 minutes left, and we still got a lot of altcoins to share. So I'm just going to skip it over.
All right, you choose one, and I'm going to choose one.
All right, well, we need to look at Zcash. We've actually got 2 more altcoins to share, but we need to look at Zcash. And the reason for that, right, is earlier on this call, we discussed how it is a blast from the past. Earlier on this call, we discussed how when the US dollar drops, Bitcoin is your assurance and basically your hedge against the prices of, basically your store of value to hedge against a weakening currency. Bitcoin is the insurance against fiat, they call it, but Zcash is the insurance against Bitcoin. And Matty, the reason for that, and something that you might need to pay attention on now that you're in the UK, is the fact that it looks like we are moving, unfortunately, towards a digital ID in many different countries. And you see that they're trying to roll it out in the UK, a lot of backlash. The same thing in Australia, a lot of backlash, and I hope it's something that doesn't come in. But essentially, right now, when we send money to one another, a lot of that is on the blockchain and people can see that, they can verify that. And it's really no one's business what we spend our money on, what we like to buy and any of that. But there is a lot of fears as well that this is going to implement a social credit system where if your carbon footprint from what you're buying is going to potentially affect what you can and can't buy. Like I said, just rumors right now. I'm not going to get too deep into that on this call. But because of that, a lot of people are now flocking over to privacy coins. We're seeing coins like Monero and Zcash completely rip. Now, I shared this on my live call that I do inside Empire on Tuesday. If we go back and see what the price was on Tuesday, it was much, much lower than what it is now. Tuesday would have been the 6th. We're looking at around $160, currently up to $233. So if you were in Empire, congrats, you were able to make quite a bit on this. That's just on spot as well. So if you're not in the Empire platform, man, you are missing out.
This thing absolutely ripped.
Yeah, but you know what I like about it as well is 1, it's got the whole privacy layer. But 2, it's only got a circulating supply of only 16 million. So when we're looking at these coins, they tend to go up really fast, but also down really fast because there's not many coins available more or less to buy. given the fact that we're seeing such a, I'm sharing your screen again, Matty, but given the fact that we are seeing such a fear about privacy right now, I think the privacy coins, man, they're looking good.
Mate, in 2 weeks, this thing moonshot 400%.
Yeah. They were saying
That
BNB
is massive.
7x, so this has done a 4x, but it's, if you go back, zoom out more on that, you look at the monthly, like this has been much, much higher. And I think now, you know, the upcoming push for privacy, could it be the privacy coin's time to shine?
This is huge. This is massive. Massive. Look at XMR. That's
Matty,
had a
mate,
little bit of a push.
Matty,
but
you're the
nothing-
co-founder of
nothing as
Empire,
major.
and you weren't even on my live call when I discussed this on Tuesday, man. You need even you need to be on my calls,
I was
man.
not. I was not on that call that day. I will
Missed
admit,
out.
I did miss that one. That's okay. That's okay. There's always another one. There's always more opportunities, and that's why it's important, right? Stay on top of it.
That's
All right,
right.
never give
That's
up.
why we
Keep-
bring you
keep-
these
keep-
calls
keep
every
trying.
Friday, yeah?
All right, so let's do one more, then wrap it up because it is 8 o'clock over here. But we have been going for an hour, and I know it's 6 o'clock over in Australia at the moment.
All right.
Friday
So
night.
there is one little hidden gem, and then Matty's going to look at stacks. But there is one little hidden gem that we need to talk about. Something that's it pumped really hard when it first launched, and now it's kind of gotten to a point where everyone's forgotten about it. And that is Trump coin. So whilst we got the ETF listing on the DTCC for SUI and DOT, what we're seeing right now is Trump coin also getting that listing. Now, I personally don't think this coin is going to see as much inflows as SUI and the and DOT, because it really is just a meme coin. But we do know that the chart has completely fallen apart on that. Matty, give us some TA on it. I'm just going to flick it back over to your chart. Look at that. It's dead.
Mate,
It's dead.
I was just gonna say this thing has absolutely fallen to the floor. You know what's funny, right? I look at this and I look at World Liberty Financial, Trump's other token. That thing is also taking a massive dump.
Yeah, but World Liberty
at the moment,
Financial,
right?
man, I'm very bullish on that still, because the control
Everyone
collapse of
is
the dollar.
very bullish. I
You know what?
know, but it's just it just keeps copying it.
It does,
It
for a
really
reason.
does.
For a reason, though. It allows the big guys to accumulate more, right?
I'm just looking at this and I'm looking, okay, how much more is this going to keep going down? I mean, this is a meme coin. This thing here, it wouldn't surprise me if it hits even further down. I mean, last time it was here, April 2025, it had a massive push, but again, this is a token without really any true intrinsic value at the moment. This is simply, like you said, another meme coin.
It is. It is a meme coin, but you know, I think on the hype of an ETF getting listed, we could see a bit of buying pressure. Could sweep those initial lows that we have there first, and then head back up towards that $15 mark, though.
Well, I'm looking at this. I'm looking at this point here. That first stop here would be $9 for me. And from that's 23% from the bottom of the range here. That for me wouldn't be an unrealistic target off some strong fundamental news. When you look to the left, that is the next resistance point, and prices hit there a couple of times off the bottom here. So, but it's getting squeezed. The decision will come very soon. I would say in the next 7 days, we'll get some movement out of this.
I agree. And look, I
So,
know
yeah.
that you want to share. I know that you want to share stacks. So hit it, because I'm also quite bullish on stacks. Now, what you find is stacks usually moves before Bitcoin. If stacks pumps, Bitcoin tends to follow. And if stacks dumps, Bitcoin tends to follow. That's just kind of a bit of an observation that I've made.
So I did put this on a reel yesterday. If you guys haven't seen it, check out Empire Crypto Trading on Instagram, on YouTube. I have got the short on there as well. But I'm monitoring this point here. I'm looking for something that says, hey, we're going to hold at this point to then actually execute a really strong position. Again, though, I'm waiting on Bitcoin to sort of find its ground and the altcoins overall, because that's where we're sort of stuck at the moment. But between here, it's 102% range. So I'm just watching to see if we get a bounce off this point back down to 55 cents. You can see I've got an alert there, and that's what I'll be looking at for stacks. There is a lot of stacked resistance to the top of the range, but again, if I can get a better entry point at the bottom here, then my risk to reward will be quite reasonable.
I like what you said there. There's a lot of stacked resistance, right? Stacked.
A good dad joke to end it on a Friday.
Come on, Matty, share your last shitcoin, your little Pepe, and let's wrap it up, eh?
All right. We'll do the update. This update came in yesterday as well on my notification feed. It is very close to stage 13. getting sold out. We nearly hit the 27 million USD mark as well. So again, monitoring this, I'm interested to see what additional marketing these guys switch on. Because if you type in Little Pepe on
Mate,
simply Google, and
it
that
was
a-
on my live call on Tuesday that I did for the Empire community. I was sharing a website, and Little Pepe was the ad on the website, and I was like, "Oh shit! If Matty Stella sees this, he'll be all
there
over
is
it."
ads everywhere. There is an article, like multiple articles every single day coming out about Little Pepe. And we know you can buy these articles, right? So that's nothing
Of course.
different. But at the same time, like these guys are continuing. They keep pumping out this again. High risk. We've got to be very crystal clear. But we had to do the update. Hopefully next week we see stage 14. And I'll
How
be
many
happy.
stages is there before it launches?
Stage 19 is the final.
Okay, so you're 6 stages away. So probably by 2028. No, I'm joking. We should probably see this soon. But
I
guys,
reckon 2026. Probably I don't know, February, March. We should be okay for a launch.
I'm excited for this launch. It is casino. It is highly risk gambling, but yeah, could do good, could do nothing at all. Who knows? But I know you're pretty heavily invested in it, so for your sake, I hope it goes up, mate. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, and put that notification bell on because we go live every Friday. If you enjoyed this call, we're going to be doing it just again next Friday with fresh analysis and alpha. So thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to wrap it up. Go and enjoy your Friday night. Touch some grass over the weekend. And we'll see you guys next Friday. Or we're going to see you in the Empire platform. You might even see us in the Empire platform if you click that link in the bio to get live and premium fundamental reports. I'll see you in Empire. But otherwise, I'll see you next Friday. Bye for now. Have a great weekend.
Sarah.